Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Connections, airing right here on OROMIA11. I am your host, Anna Orr. And today we are talking about resources for people that are interested in either protesting or if you know someone that is being detained. Today's guest is James Cook. He's a criminal defense attorney with connections right here to the Twin Cities as well as the state of California. You're probably going to recognize his face once we get started talking, but do me a favor and grab a pen and a piece of paper because you're going to want to jot down some of the information he's sharing with us today. This is going to be a wonderful episode you won't want to miss. James Cook, welcome to the program, Community Connections, airing right here on OROMIA11. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you are here as a criminal defense attorney out of California, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, now I first was introduced to you from my For You page on TikTok, seeing you here in Minnesota out at the Whipple, holding up a piece of paper with your information on it, trying to have detainees contact you. Talk to me about what led you to that parking lot in the middle of the winter.
So, yeah, first of all, I just want to make sure you know, I work for the John Burris firm, which is BNCL Law, and we actually we specialize in suing law enforcement. So my boss got famous from the Rodney King versus City of Los Angeles case, and also representing Tupac Shakur against the City of Oakland, and then Oscar Grant and a number of other cases that are police misconduct. So that's our specialty. I also do I also do criminal defense as well. But I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I graduated from Southwest High School. I went off to college, Washington, D.C. at Howard University, and went to law school in San Francisco. So I go back and forth between both cities. I live in both, I live in San Francisco or Oakland and Minneapolis. So I'm in Minneapolis probably a little bit more than I am in the Bay Area. So when the detention started happening, this is right up our alley. We deal with, challenging law enforcement, constitutional issues, federal civil litigation. And again, everybody knows this for the police excessive force cases. However, we do deployment and just anything that has to do with raising a constitutional issue against the government. So when the detention started happening, of course, I went to Whipple and told people, hey, if you get arrested as a protester, I'll represent you pro bono. If you have somebody in detention, give me a call and I'll try to help you get them out, or I'll find the resources to help you get them out.
I think that is so important for people to realize that there are resources at their disposal. I'm sure being detained is such a jarring experience, whether you are someone that's inside your home or you're outside at a protest. You kind of don't feel like, I'm sure you don't know where you're going to begin to try and get yourself out of this situation.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure for the detainees, they don't know how long they're going to be detained for. A lot of times, what we're finding is they haven't been apprised of their rights. But let's do that now. So just so people understand, if you're watching this program, okay, we have the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, right? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, up to the eighth, which we're concerned about. So if you're a protester or ICE watcher, it invokes the First Amendment, which is your freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. And then then we typically get into the Fourth Amendment right away. That is whether or not the ICE agents or law enforcement has detained you properly with a warrant. And if they haven't, then one of the exceptions to that warrant requirement applies. And then the Fifth Amendment, your right to remain silent and not speak to the detention officers. And then the Sixth Amendment, your right to counsel. What I'm finding is that when people get detained, whether they're a protester or an immigrant in some phase of their citizenship phase, that there is a lot of manipulation by the agents to try to get them to waive their Sixth Amendment right to counsel. All right. So if you get detained, don't do that. All right. Tell them you want a lawyer. You can call me, James Cook. Call our firm. They'll probably give you the information, but we will do this. We will try to get you out pro bono, and then if there's an arrest, if you're a protester, we'll do that as well. But yes, it's jarring, and people sign their deportation papers, right? They waive their rights in order to get out of custody, or because they're led to believe that they're going to somehow reunite with their family.
And I'm sure for some, that seems like the most important thing, to be able to be reunited with their family and their loved ones.
That's what we're finding when people get out. That's what they say. Like, I just wanted to see my family, and then they end up, in their country, back in their country of origin. And that is so again, you must know your rights, and also, in order to prepare, if you think that you might be subject to detention, what you really need to do is you need to have a plan with your family, right? Check in, regular check-in plan, whatever, 3 hours, 4 hours. Don't hear from them, then you start, you contact me or one of the other organizations that can assist you, right? Second, I would advise everybody these days to get a dash cam. You got your phone, but get a dash cam video if you're traveling or for your bike or whatever, so that it can be recorded, right? And make sure that the recording is also synced to like your Apple or Signal or something like that. Then a lot of people will see, and also we'll see when they violate your rights. All right. And then the third thing is just make sure people know, if you're an immigrant, your information, name, date of birth, your A number, country of origin. So it makes it easier and faster to find you. And then also other things like you got allergies, you have certain medical requirements, to have some of your medicine set aside so they can bring it to the detention center. But you need to be proactive and prepare. And then, keep my information handy to contact my office or contact me directly, and I'll put you in contact with someone. I hope that helps.
That is definitely going to help. And we're going to make sure that we provide all of the contact information you provided to us along in this episode, so that people are going to be able to connect with you directly and your team. Now, What have you been encountering aside from going down to the Whipple, and now as the days and weeks have moved forward, what have you been hearing from detainees about what their experiences are like within the Whipple?
I'm not getting a lot of talk about sort of the conditions inside, so I can't so much speak to that, other than we know that in some ways it may be segregated. But because there's more urgent issues, such as, for instance, like the people that got detained in the church, we have to deal with the criminal representation, right? The criminal defense representation. Mm-hmm. And then from detainees, most of the detainees, they're immigrants, get deported. So it's almost like we're trying to triage problems, such as how to deal with malicious prosecution of people once they've been inside. So again, I haven't heard a lot about the conditions, other than being confined regardless is problematic. I mean, it's you're confined, your movement is restricted, and you don't know.
Now, for people that need language support services, a translator, or if they're speaking Spanish, or if they need support in other ways like that, are you all, through your law firm, able to support them?
Yeah, I'm able to provide that. In fact, we have a group set up. So if you contact me, one of the first instructions that I'm going to give you is how to get in contact with this group, right? And then you can, you can post something in your language, and then people will respond to you. We have attorneys all over the country, paralegals, other professionals. And also, if I could just take the opportunity to make this call. If you're watching this, if you happen to be watching this and you're any kind of professional, you just want to volunteer, please get a hold of me, okay? We need people from all walks of life. Media, such as yourself, man. Like media, people that can post social media and kind of streamline that process. to help people with streaming services, engineers, right? I mean, anything that you can think of, people that organize, like, I mean, for instance, I say you're a wedding planner or you're an event planner, perfect. Like we need you to organize events and just organize like the administration of helping people that are just good at completing paperwork, the detail oriented. We need that. We need translators of all languages, but the highest priority, that we see are, of course, Spanish, Somali, French, when we're talking about Haitians, in certain African countries. And then, paralegals, you can be a student attorney with us, law students, of course. But, we need doctors, medics, like nurses, whomever, like anybody that has a skill can be put to use in this ecosystem of, number one, trying to help detainees and just resist the ICE enforcement measures. And I'll say this, they've done a press conference saying that they're going to draw down the number of ICE agents, and the president said they need to have a softer touch. That hasn't happened. Before I got on this particular interview, I dealt with in that half hour before that from 1 o'clock on, I was dealing with 2 separate instances where people got picked up this morning. Okay, so it's not happening. It's happening at the same rate that people are being detained and deported. So please be proactive. And if you are a volunteer who can help, please contact me. My office, whatever you need. Also, if you're a lawyer, you need to get admitted to federal court if you want to help out with this effort, because it will help for filing my understanding, the habeas petition, applications, and also whatever else needs to be filed in court. So I hope some of that helps, Anna.
That's definitely answering some of the questions that I had. So it's almost like you're reading my brain. I'm grateful that you are not only giving us information that we need to know if we've been detained, if we want to go out to protest, but also what the call to action is right now for so many of us who are probably watching this at home or will be watching this and trying to figure out what can we do to lend ourselves to our neighbors.
Yeah, and I was going to add one thing you could do when you get if you have a presentation like this, like we're doing and we're recording it right now, download the recording and send it forward. Because people can just listen to this as 20, 30-minute interview, and they can get a lot of information, and we could propagate the information that way, right? And replicate this so that people have that, and then they know where to call. So please, figure out a way to record this or get the recording, send it off to 10 people and tell them to send it off to 10 more. And again, be proactive, like think it through. There is a declaration of parental rights form that you can download that we can get to you. So if you're a person with kids and you think that you're going to get detained, that you've thought through, okay, I'm going to have these people step in the shoes for my kids, and they're going to take care of them, because you don't necessarily want them to go to CPS. Again, the medicine situation is a big deal for detainees. If you're in jail and say you need kidney medicine, you got glaucoma, dire needs, make sure that you got backup, and so that your family or your loved ones could bring that medicine to the detention center, all right, and be able to tell them, know your A number, all right. Please know your A number. Make sure your friend, not just your family, but friends that you trust, make sure that they have it. So.
Now, you talked about some information for parents, how they can support their kids, but as we've heard right here in the Twin Cities, that ICE has been outside of a preschool. They have been at Roosevelt High School in South Minneapolis. And I know that there are plenty of minors trying to figure out what they can do if they're being stopped. What is something that you would say they would be able to do and that they can understand? They have a chance to help maybe stop and or interrupt them being detained.
So again, I go back to the proactive. So parents, make sure that you're proactive. You got a backup plan in case you get taken off the street. Who you want to take care of your kids, medicines for your children. Just a general plan, who, neighbor, relative, the hierarchy of people that you want to take care of your children. For children and minors and people who also fear being detained. Number one, you got to know your rights. All right. So if an agent stops you, you have a right to refuse to talk to them. If they're going to take you into custody, they're going to take you into custody. But it is your right to refuse. But you always demand a lawyer. All right. They want to talk to you. I want a lawyer. What they're going to do is they're going to try to manipulate you into waiving your rights, like telling you, well, do you have a lawyer? Yeah, I do. And they probably showed up. So you need to say, they're probably showing up here. I want to talk to my parents. I want to talk to my lawyer. I want to talk to, whoever it is in my family, my aunt, my pastor, But really, let's just say this. If you're black, you look like me, East African, a person of color, don't engage with the officers physically. You see that they're willing to shoot. They're willing to shoot people, and I think a lot of people are shocked that they're actually willing to shoot white people. But yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then you understand, as they say, you understand what time it is. So no sudden movements, right? De-escalate the situation, because they will not de-escalate it with you. Their de-escalation tactic will be to shoot you. So you have to de-escalate it and comply to a certain extent. Don't be defiant. Like, live to fight another day. All right, because we can get you out. And again, I'm James Cook with the PNCL Law, with that firm, and there's a number of other organizations that can help you. And make sure everyone, parents and children and teens alike, have a camera rolling at all times, whether it's on your phone. Have that app sync to your Facebook or your Instagram, so you can press play when you see an encounter starting to happen. And especially if you're a young person of color, you need to have that dash cam video. It's like $20-$30 on Amazon. That needs to be rolling, and then you need to have that panic button that goes on if you get an encounter with law enforcement, so that it's rolling and people can see sort of real time what's happening. Also, it will be a record. It will be the record whereby I will sue. One thing on that, we are collecting names for class action suit for anybody that has negative, encounters, interactions with ICE. So, or if you have already, get in contact with our firm, with the Burris firm. We will be turning some of the names over to the ACLU and a National Lawyers Guild as well. But, if you've had negative interactions, you've been physically hurt, you've been detained unreasonably, you have rights that we can vindicate and vindicate by either a suit on your behalf or in terms of a class action. And again, I'm licensed in California, Minnesota, Washington D.C. So it gives us rights, a way to operate in other states via the Pro Hoc Vice process.
Thank you so much for that information. Now, just switching gears a little bit, James, you spoke about the city's church protest that took place in January. And
Sure.
Nakima Levy Armstrong, William Kelly, Chantel Allen, and a host of others went into City's Church in St. Paul, protested there, and then there was media coverage internally from Don Lemon, who was a known journalist, and then a local journalist, Georgia Fort, was there as well covering and had been apprehended. Talk to us about what has the experience been like walking Chantel Allen and William Kelly through the current charges that they've been facing since that subsequent protest?
Yeah, so again, what the government is attempting to charge them with, what they originally attempted was a statute, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but basically what they're saying is they interfered with people's rights to exercise their freedom of religion in a violent way. So I'll say this: if you some people saw the hearing, but the prosecutors, the U.S. government was wholly unprepared to be able to assert these claims. All right, they did detain them, and they were released sometime later. It's a wrongful detention, and of course we will sue on their behalf. Anyone that wants to sue, but we will sue on their behalf. Um, but to me, and this is my personal opinion. I think it's they were political prisoners. All right, it was a political detention. Um, you know, and it was done to make an example. They're continuing to arrest people that were involved in that. But if you see the video, you've seen the coverage of Don Lemon. They did not interfere with the church service in a violent way. You got to remember that statute originally, what they're trying to do is allow black folks, you know, turn of the last century or the one before that, to worship in churches without being pulled out and lynched.
Mm-hmm.
All right, or to prevent the church bombings. That's what that was for. None of these people were engaged in any of that conduct. So it's unfortunate that they have to deal with federal criminal charges, but there's great attorneys provided for representation. And, hopefully well, I don't want to say too much about it other than, because I don't want to do anything that might be detrimental to any of that, to their defense. But in my opinion, it feels like a wholly kind of political sort of sideshow. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with, it creates more news, and we take our mind off of what's really at stake, right? Where, people say the Epstein files, people say the fact that the economy is in free fall because of the current administration's policies. But here's my take on this situation. We have the midterm elections coming, and there's a large amount of young people of color who are of voting age, and they will be able to, and then there's people online that are going to be able to vote in the midterms in the next 2 years. And that's a huge political block, right? Huge voting block. And if they're mobilized and say they're all on the same page, it doesn't say that they will be, but if they're mobilized and they're all on the same page, that's a really powerful number of votes that you have in any election, whether it's Minnesota or any other part of the country, but definitely Minnesota, right? We're on the map now. The whole world is watching. So what's the best way to, dilute that voting block? Well, the best way is to cause chaos in the community and then, put them all in detention and try to deport them, right? Whether you're Latino or you're Somali. And you got to think, like before with black folks, it was mass incarceration, right? But now we're seeing, and they said, we want mass deportations. And I have to imagine that, the people that are affected are people of color. The other thing is that the young Latinos, which is the larger group, but also Somalis, it's a huge financial, source of wealth, right? Those kids that are about to, come on and really start making money and enter adulthood. Mm-hmm. So not only is it political power, but it's also financial power. And financial power, if you remember in the 60s, our parents and grandparents, when they with the Selma boycotts, mm-hmm. and the marches, they were doing this, right, to emphasize like, hey, we got political power, but we also got financial power, and we'll just go on strike. And you know what they did to them? They sicked the dogs on them, and they beat them with clubs, and the whole world saw it. Well, so what's the best way to dilute that financial power that's going to come on board in 2028? Deport them, cause havoc in their family. So if you start to think about this and you're watching this and you're thinking about this, remember you actually have the upper hand. You just have to be organized, and there just has to be like a central thread, and you got to do those jobs and have those aspirations, those professional aspirations that enable you to build wealth, buy a house, because that's what, to me, this is about, is the people of color, and in Minneapolis that means Latino and Somali. They want to dilute your power, and you don't have to let that happen. And again, the way you not let that happen is, you take school seriously, have fun, but take it seriously. Try to avoid, like any type of addiction issues, like we know that we have to deal with that in our community, but try to avoid that as much as possible. And you'll be on the right path, because collectively you really are going to determine the outcome of not only the election, but the financial direction of the country.
I think that's very important and very sound advice, James. Thank you for that. Now, before I let you go, make sure that you share with watchers the contact information for them to connect to your law firm.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. Can I offer one more insight, though?
Absolutely.
Okay. One of the things that I'm worried about with sort of all the anti-ICE rhetoric, the kind of thing that happened after George Floyd, is that, there's going to be just a backlash, right? Mm-hmm. Of people saying, like anti-government and law enforcement and that type of thing. And we saw this after George Floyd, right? Everybody defund the police, everybody was caught up in it. But the people that become victims of that need the police the most, they just need them to do their job. They need law enforcement to do their job, are people of color. Like black folks were the victims of that, right? And I mean, if you are an upper middle class, well-meaning white person, first of all, you don't want to be told how to necessarily vote or how to act in our community. We actually need the police. We just need them to do their job. We don't want to enable fentanyl problems. Like if you, again, and we've had these debates a lot, but people say, well, why are these white folks like coming in our neighborhood, bringing food, doing needle drops? Why don't they just have people come to their house? And that's a very legitimate concern, because when you have a large gathering of people that are doing drugs trafficking, because that's what it becomes. Homeless encampments become, open air drug markets, sex trafficking, that type of thing. And then the people that bring the food and the needles and whatever have you, and they want to put in bathrooms, that's enabling that activity. What the solution would be, if you have the resources, get a building or open up your home and tell people, hey, go here for food, needles, and we'll also give you resources. And that would be much more productive than allowing sort of the residual effect, that is poor, elderly, Black, Latino, Somali folks having to deal with the aftermath. If you live in my area, the south side or north side, and somebody breaks one of your windows or your car window, it's a lot of money to replace. Mm-hmm. It sets you back a lot of money. It causes more economic hardship. If you have people screaming out on the street, like you can't sleep, I mean, you just a whole host of issues. So please, folks, like, I know you mean well, but don't enable the conduct that's going to be left in a vacuum after, with all the anti-law enforcement sentiment. We just need them to do their jobs properly. With that said, my name is James Cook. I'm with the BNCL law firm. That's bncllaw.com. Again, B as in boy, N as in Nancy, C Curry, L Lacey.com, law firm. Or you can look up John Burris Law, JOHN BURRISLAW. My number, my personal number, and I'm fine to give it out, 415-350-3393. I take all calls. I may not get back to you right away, but I try to return all calls. I literally fall asleep returning calls. The office number, you don't get me if I'm in court or something like that, is 510-839-5200. Again, 510-839-5200. Those are California numbers, but I do live in Minneapolis. I have a house there. I have roots there. I have deep roots. I have deep ties to Minneapolis community. But the headquarters is in California. And, I'm just proud of it all the way around. But I'm more so proud of just the way Minneapolis has come together organically. The other source of resources is Powwow Grounds Coffee Shop, which is at Franklin Avenue and 15th. That's Powwow Grounds Coffee Shop. All my relations gallery, okay? So if you go there and you need immediate resources or just information, Everything is there. That's on 15th and Franklin. The owner, I don't want to say his name, but he's a good guy, and they're giving free coffee, that type of thing. But they also have a lot of supplies, and that is the heartbeat of the resistance. Okay, and it's the safest place to be. And if you are a person who needs to go to the detention center, turn yourself in, you can go there.
Thank you so much for your time today, James, and for all the work that you are doing. Like I said before, we are going to make sure that we provide all your contact information and website links for our viewers to stay connected to you. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much.
Okay, we'll see you, Anna. Thank you.
Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for this episode of Community Connections, airing right here on OROMIA 11. As always, I am your host, Anna Orr, and I hope that something that was shared today you have found inspiring, educational, or encouraging to you with all that is taking place in our state and across this country. Be sure to look up all of the information that will be linked in this episode if you or someone in your network can benefit from the information that has been shared. As always, I look forward to connecting with you again soon.